All right, what's going on, guys? Really quick, I'm on live right now for my webinar, but I'm going to be clipping this part of the video because I want to invite you guys. We're going to be doing a giveaway, a mass give, like a large giveaway, how we used to do it. We're going to be doing a course giveaway. Today is the 13th, Monday, so we're going to be doing it 13th, 14th, 15th, on the 16th. So October 16th, Thursday, we're going to be doing a giveaway for our freight dispatch course. We're going to be giving it away how we usually do it, and I can't wait to do this giveaway. It's going to be extremely fun, exciting. If you guys have never been to one, I encourage you to jump on, invite someone that you might know is interested in this industry, and I'd love to see you here again. October 16th, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be capping off our 7-night webinar series, which we've been doing every day. So if you want to jump on with us every day up until Thursday, definitely go ahead and do that. But just to let you know, once again, October 16th, right? Because today's the 13th, 14, 15, 16. Yep. October 16th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to go on here. We're going to do a huge giveaway. So if you want to enter into that particular giveaway, this is actually what I want you to do. I want you to comment under here, giveaway, in all caps. You don't have to do it now on live, but for those who are watching the pre-recorded video, comment giveaway, and then shoot us an email, courses@covenantdispatchllc.com. In the subject line, put giveaway, and then email us your first and last name, and then we're going to place everybody's names into the slot for a chance to win. And I can't wait to see you there. Share this with someone that you know, again, is interested in this kind of information. And let's have a blast on Thursday as we cap off our 7-night webinar series. For those of you who are on live right now, as you're tuning in, please let me know if the sound is clear. And also comment where you're tuning in from. This is night number 4. The first night we covered fundamentals. Second night, I think we covered, I don't even remember. We've been covering different topics every night, and it's so much information. But tonight, for night number 4, we're going to be talking about the art of negotiation and rate mastery. So basically, the art of negotiating for a good rate, basically. And so Kassan's from Philly. There's someone else on here from Philly. So we got a couple people from Philly. I used to live out in Philly for a little bit. I lived in Germantown, lived out by Strawberry Mansion. That's probably the roughest stop that I've ever lived at in my whole entire life. But I love Philly though, even though I'm a Giants fan. But yes, I can hear you. I'm tuning in from Dallas. Awesome. I was just in Fort Worth. I was there a couple months ago, like 2 months ago. I was down in Dallas, Fort Worth area. There's a phenomenal church down there that I recommend. If you're a church goer, there's a phenomenal church I recommend down there called Revival Today, Fort Worth. If you're in the area. Anyways, let's get right into this video right here. Night number 4. We're going to be talking about the art of rate negotiation, and then at the end, we're going to go into a Q&A, how we've been doing it. But I don't want to spend too much time. I waited a couple minutes already to let people jump in. But if you're watching this pre-recorded video, just so you know, all of this is going to be, all the things we talk about, the links, anything we mention, our email address for contact information, everything's going to be linked in the description under this video so that you guys can have that information. But I want to tie right into it. Yesterday we talked about, what did we talk about? Oh my God, I should know. Someone remind me. Yesterday we talked about systems. We talked about outsourcing and systems and those sorts of things. But today I want to talk about rate negotiation. So let's get right into this. These are 3 facts that I want to just highlight before we get into this. Number 1, most dispatchers lose money not because they don't find loads. This is so true. Not because they don't find loads, but because they don't know how to negotiate. It's kind of similar to, like, I like to always compare it to the real estate industry because I don't know much about the real estate industry, but I know I guess surface level. I have a cousin who is killing it right now in real estate, and we'll get on the phone every so often. He shares like different things with me, but it's like the equivalent of jumping into the real estate industry, but not knowing what an earnest deposit is, or not knowing what wholesaling is, or not knowing what interest is, or what an appraisal is, or what home equity is, or anything like that. You got to know these terms, and not just knowing the terms, but knowing the art of utilizing what you know. And so when it comes to finding loads for drivers, you need to know the market. You need to know what's going on in the market. It's not like extremely detailed, extensive information, but you should have a surface level understanding at the very least, so that way you're booking good loads, because that's where you're getting paid. Second point, I actually want to share something, like an example. Let me give you an example. I remember this is gonna be funny. I remember the very first load that I ever booked. It was this is actually a really good example. You guys are gonna probably laugh, but you know, I was still learning in the area of booking freight, right, and all that. And at this time, I didn't freight dispatch. Well, I did dispatch, but I didn't know you could outsource it. I was doing it for myself, and I dispatched myself on a load. I booked myself a load from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is not too far from Philly. Lancaster is probably like about an hour and 10, 15 minutes away from Philly, going westward. It's west of Philly, and it's east of Pittsburgh by like 5 hours, or Harrisburg, which is the capital. It's about 45 minutes east of Harrisburg. Anyways, it's in Pennsylvania, right? More eastern side of Pennsylvania. And I booked a load there, and it was a pallet. It was like 5-6 pallets of coffee, and the coffee was getting delivered to upstate New York. And it wasn't like upstate. It was only like, I think it was like Middletown, New York, right? It wasn't that far upstate. Now, the total mileage was about, if you include what it took me to get to Lancaster, which was like 35 miles, I think it was like 130 miles, something like that, from where I was at to where I was going to New York. So let's just say like a total of close to 200 miles, right? And then of course I had to drive back. I booked that load for, I think it was $500, right? And to me, I'm like, yo, my first load, $500, we're crushing it, yada, 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 So I filled up my tank. I think at that time, you could have filled up a box truck, at least the box truck I had. You could have filled it up with about 130, 140 around there. I filled it up. So I said, okay, I still got, 500 minus 140. I'm looking at, 360. I'm like, all right, I still got a couple dollars. And I'm making a profit out of this. So booked the load, went and picked it up, took it to New York. And here's the kicker. This was on Christmas Eve is when I booked this load. And so looking at it from an objective standpoint, I mean, a load, let's just say 180 miles, it's paying 500. So it's a little bit over $2 a mile, which is like the standard, right? You want to hit at least about 200 or $2 a mile. So I'm like, all right, I crushed it, right? I got myself a little bit over $2 a mile. The broker was willing to work with me. I had a new authority, and I got to New York, delivered the load, everything went well. And then when I went to leave, I'm like, all right, let me see what I could book out of here. Yeah, right. I went to go into I forgot what load board I was, I think DAT. And when I got inside the load board, there were like 2 loads, and they were only drive-in loads. And then the thought hit me, oh my God, it's Christmas Day, or Christmas Eve. There's no freight out here. I'm not going to be able to book it. And I didn't think of that ahead of time, right? But see, that's like an understanding that I should have had before I even booked it. So what turned out to be over $2 as the rate per mile ended up flunking down way below that, because it was about 180 miles or something like that to drive from where I was at to Lancaster, from Lancaster to New York. But then I had to deadhead, meaning I had to drive empty all the way back to where I was going to. So it flunked with no load. So it put my rate per mile way below $2 a mile. And what turned out to be like a profitable run, I think I maybe made like, in hindsight, looking at everything considered, I maybe made like 150, which is still not terrible in one day. But for all that I did, I traveled like two hours and 40 minutes or so there. Then another 2 hours and 40 minutes back. Then I had to get loaded. The guy was taking for a long time. For all that, I could have just worked a regular job and gotten paid about the same amount. So, anyways, me not having a correct understanding of how negotiating freight is what caused me to not be able to uh, get myself a good load. And so here's another point that I want to make, and let's start getting right into the points directly because we're at 10 minutes already. The power of positioning. Here's a key, right? When it comes to negotiating freight, sometimes it's not just necessarily about what you say, right, or your words. It really is about positioning. So let's look at these points. Number one is confidence. You have to have confidence. The very first thing that I learned when you're booking loads on the load board, a broker is going to be able to tell, number one, if you're super inexperienced, and then number two, if you don't know what you're talking about. And if sometimes the broker will call you out on it, or if they don't call you out on it, what they'll end up doing is they'll like take advantage of you, right? And they talk really fast. Sometimes it just depends on like who you're talking to. Like they'll talk really, hey, such and such. We're calling up. How you doing? I'm calling about this load you guys got posted going from New England to Vermont or whatever. Oh yeah. What's the posting ID? Oh, the posting ID is this. Da da da. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, we got that. It's this, and this. It's the commodity, whatever. You guys got someone close by, and it's like, well, yeah, we kind of got some. Okay, we got it for 500, and it's like, boom, they hit you with the rate. Now, if you're not like prepared before you even start to negotiate, like if you're not prepared on what you already have in mind, which I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, you lose confidence, right? So confidence is the first one. Brokers can hear it. They can smell it a mile away. And they can tell if you're a beginner. And at the end of the day, you're going to make mistakes, which is fine. It's okay to make mistakes. And you have to learn somehow, but at least do as much preparation as possible before you jump into it. That way, you're not like totally falling flat on your face. So number one is confidence. Number two is knowing your numbers. This is so key. This is what I would do before I would even call the broker out and see, honestly, this is where software services, AI-powered services kind of come into play. Like, for example, SmartHop has a great tool. I talked about yesterday or 2 days ago or yesterday. There's a guy named Toe Piglet on YouTube. You guys should check him out. He has a software called Dispatch Robot. And Dispatch Robot does the AI background work, kind of like what we're talking about now, finding the best rates and based on what you have and where you're at and where you're going and what you're willing to deadhead and all that. It does that kind of for you. But let's say you don't utilize that. Let's say you're starting off and you don't want to pay that subscription, but you just kind of want to get your feet wet into the industry. You got to know your numbers. So you're going to want to have your Google Maps up. You want to know where your truck is at in proximity to where the pickup is at. So let's say your driver's like 10 miles out from the pickup location, or let's say he's 30, 40, 50 miles out. You got to know where he's at in proximity, because then that's one of the things they're going to ask you off the jump. How far is your driver? Because a lot of times the closer the driver is, the better it is for them, because they're like, okay, he's right there. And then that'll determine one of the factors into what you get for the rate. So know your numbers. Before you get on there, you want to know where your driver's at. You want to know lane rates. So, DAT has an awesome source and it's free. You can literally go to Google and type DAT trend lines, and on DAT trend lines, and of course they have more in-depth systems and softwares you can use, like Sonar, stuff like that. But, if you were to just do a quick, overview analysis of what the rates are looking like, you go to DAT trend lines. Again, like I said in the beginning, I'll put that information in the linked out in the description under this video. Let me actually write that down. I should actually write some of that stuff down. Let me write it down here for you guys so I don't forget. 1 second. DAT trend lines. Oh, I thought I had a pen. Oh, here it is. DAT. Okay, DAT trend line. So I got that. So you want to know that, right? You want to know what the rates are going for in that particular region, because let's just say, they give you a rate under that. Or another thought is, if you onboard a carrier, you want to ask them what their target rate is so that you're never going under that, right? And so, you want to make sure that you're hovering around that. So in order to not get duped or not get a rate far below what you're looking for, you have to have a standard, right? And so you got to know what the trend lines are looking like. You got to know what the rates are looking like. Again, DHE Trend Lines has an overview that they update frequently, and you guys can check that out also to be able to see what it is. Something else that you want to put into consideration, and I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but it's just something to consider, is now, you know what, never mind. I'll cover that a little bit later, because it gets real deep with the fuel surcharge and all that. Because let me explain that. Let me just explain this part. When it comes to trucking, right? Certain because there's so many facets of trucking. You got drivers that pull from the rail. You in the ports, you got drivers that do power only, dropping hooks. You got drivers that are drive-in, flatbed, reefer, step deck, low boy. So many different types of what's the other one? I can't think of it, but so many different kinds of equipment types, and each kind has like their own kind of variables, own kind of things that go into it. One of the things, like if you guys are familiar with this or not, is on the rail, for example, they do what's called a fuel surcharge and a line haul. So a line haul is the mileage. So let's say from point A to point B, it's 150 miles. We need $2 a mile, so we need $300 for the line haul, and then the fuel surcharge, they'll usually do anywhere from 30 to 50%. It's probably even more than that now, or hovering somewhere in there, 30 to 50% of that line haul. So let's say it's 50%. So you need 300 for the line haul, and then another 150, or like anywhere from 100 to 150 for the fuel surcharge. Now the fuel surcharge is essentially just covering. I only had 2 instances where I dealt with old school brokers who actually, when they gave me my rate confirmation sheet, they gave me the line haul and the fuel surcharge separately. That's the only time I've ever seen that. But I think that should be a more common thing when it comes to expedited freight, because it's a more effective way to be able to gauge a good rate. You know what I mean? And so, like, for example, like every truck has a different mile per gallon, right? Usually big rigs are hovering around 5 to 7 miles per gallon, right? Now, if you're hauling like a crazy heavy load, it might dip a little bit below that. But you're like, to find the fuel surcharge, let me get the actual formula. And I did get ahead of myself, but whatever. We're just kind of flowing right tonight, because I didn't have it in my notes, and I should have had it in my notes, because it's another great point whenever you're negotiating freight. Because let's just say the broker doesn't offer, like, you can present it to the broker where you're like, hey, we need this much for the line haul, this much for the fuel surcharge. Well, because it's not a standard in expedited freight, which is most freight you'll see on the load boards, the broker's not going to honor that line haul or that fuel surcharge. But if you calculate it beforehand, you can implement the fuel surcharge into the rate that you're going to negotiate for anyways, whenever you present it to the broker, without saying it that way. But at least this is more or less what it's going to cost in diesel. Because what happens is, like, the fuel surcharge will cover the fuel no matter what. So that'd be one of the things that you'd have to deduct from the total amount anyways to see what you actually made. But if you have it already determined in your mind, then let me get the calculation real quick, because I don't want to give you guys the fuel surcharge calculator. There we go. So here's the fuel surcharge calculator. Oh no. Here it is. You know what? I'll put this in the description also, because I feel like this will help out. It's taking the difference between the current fuel price. So whatever the current price is for diesel, right? You take that amount, and then you divide it by the vehicle's mile per gallon, which again always usually hovers around 5 to 7 miles per gallon. That'll give you your cost per mile. and then you'll multiply that by the total miles of the trip. Let me give you an example. I'm gonna write it down. Let's just say you have a driver, right? And they're in a big rig, of course, or like, yeah, they're in a big rig, right? And let's say that miles per gallon to stay somewhere in the average, let's say 6 miles per gallon, right? So we got 6 miles per gallon, right? For the truck driver that you're dispatching. And then let's say the current, let's actually look it up, what the current price for diesel is. Or does anybody know? If you know the current price for diesel on average, put it in the comment section. All right, too late. I already got it. All right, so it's saying that the average price of diesel right now is $3.71. Okay, so we got $3.71. And what you're going to do is take the current fuel price and divide it by the vehicle's mile per gallon. So let's just say, okay, so we got 3.71. I'm going to whip out my calculator on my computer here real quick. We got $3.71, and you're going to divide that by the vehicle's miles per gallon, which in this case is 6. Where's it at? There it is, divided by 6. So that gives you in this case, it gives you 0.62 if you round it up. And then you'll multiply that by whatever the trip mileage is. So let's say the trip mileage is 150 miles, right? So they're driving 150 miles. So in this particular case, it would cost $93 to complete that trip. So let's say you're negotiating for a load that's 150 miles, you can, in your mind, you can say, okay, for the line haul, I want $2 a mile, let's just say. And let's just say the load is 150 miles. Okay, that'd be $300 that you want for the line haul. And then you're paying $93, or your truck driver is going to be paying $93 for diesel. So you take the $93 and you add that to the $300, and you'd be hovering somewhere around $400. So the $400 would be like your line haul and your fuel surcharge added into one. That's just one way to do it, right? That's how they do it on the rail. And again, when you're dealing with loads on the load board, you're dealing with expedited freight. So it is different. So obviously you don't present it to the broker like that, but that's a great way to do it too. And again, I didn't have this in my notes, so I felt like just to add that. Now, you add the $93 to the 150 or the 300, which you can round up to 400. But when you're presenting it, obviously you don't want to present it for exactly what you want. You'll go a little bit above because they might go down a little bit. So, but again, we'll get into that. Did that make sense so far? Like what I was talking about? And then at the end, we're going to do a Q&A. Is it worth, let me read these comments. Is it worth it for me to do truck dispatching? It depends. I think it's worth it for anybody that wants to be able to work from home. $4. Oh yeah. So hovering around $4, but yeah, does that make sense though? So far, what I said, it wasn't in my notes, so I didn't have the exact equation. I had to look up the equation, but you guys kind of get what I'm saying with that, right? We're at 23 minutes. Let me go back to the notes and cool. And then lastly, not lastly, but to wrap up the 3 points I was making, professional presence. So you want to have a good email signature. When you're so a lot of times when you're negotiating freight, not a lot of times, but yeah, well, a lot of times brokers will want to communicate with you just through email, right? It just saves all the headache conversations that people have on the phone. So they'll deal with you. Some brokerages run strictly on email. You'll see it in their details, email only, and this is the email. So when you're because I've booked a lot of loads from the email. When you're booking loads through the email, you want to make sure that your email is set up in a way where, and I've said this before, I think in night number one, where you have your domain attached to your email address. So like info at ABC Dispatching, or dispatch at ABC Dispatching, or whatever, admin at ABC Dispatching. You want to have something like that that's attached to your domain, and you want to have your company name obviously in that domain, and you obviously don't want to have any bad reputation. So don't book loads and then like cancel them and then do that continually, because you like only brokers can get listed on what's called on the carrier 411, where they'll be able to blackmail you or whatever. Dispatchers can't necessarily get blackmailed, but they kind of can in a way, because if you ever come across another load from that same brokerage, they'll put, notes for your company. That's happened to me before, because I booked, which was my fault. One time I booked this load with this guy, and my driver went the whole opposite direction. So I ended up finding a load where he was actually at that was way better than the one that I booked with this guy, that was wrong on my end, because I called the guy late and he blackmailed me. So whatever, it happens. I'll give you guys an example as a script. Hey, Mark, I see a load's paying $2,000. I've got a truck ready with experience on that lane. We could do 2,400, or can we do 2,400 if we pick up early? There's another great strategy. So sometimes when you see loads on the load board, and some of you guys might have come across this if you currently dispatch, you'll see FCSC or FCF. So that is just an abbreviation or an acronym for first come, first serve. So that means that the first person who gets, my brain's getting all over the place. Doesn't mean that the first person who gets there is the first one who gets the load. What it means is, like, there's a time frame. So like from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., you have within that time frame to go pick up that load. But a lot of times the broker likes if you get there the earliest that you can get there. Like, for example, if it's 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., they like you to get there no later than 9 a.m., right? But if you see, like, let's say, for example, an first come, first serve option that pops up, you could tell the broker, hey, listen, we got a guy, he's, about 10, 15, 20 miles out. He can get there within the next 30, 40 minutes from this load, and then use that to your advantage when you're negotiating the freight amount, right? So that's another good example or script that you can use. I'll put that again. Let me write that down. I'll put that in the description also under the video. All right, negotiation formula. Let's talk about this. The 3 P's of negotiation. Number one, prepare. So you want to know the lane data. You want to know the pickup delivery times. That ties into the first come, first serve. All that will be in the details usually of the posted load. If it's not in the details of the posted load, then you'll communicate that with the broker. They'll let you know all those details. Those are the first things that you want to know about the load. What time is it picking up? What time does it have to deliver to the next location? For example, there's been times where there's a load that's, let's say, like 200 miles out, but it's delivering out at like 2 p.m. And the broker will say, okay, this load's going for 500, and then it needs to be delivered the next day by 8 a.m. But let's just say your driver is able to make it to let's say that the receiver is a 24-hour warehouse or whatever, which is it's typical. It happens a lot. And you say, hey, if we run it straight through the night, can we do it for 700 or 800? And a lot of times they'll say, oh, well, can you deliver it same day, even though it's 2? Yeah, we can make it happen, but, can you pay us? Sure. That's another great example. But you have to know the lane data. So you have to know stuff like that. Like, is the receiver 24 hours? Is the, what time does it need to be picked up? What is the equipment type? I mean, the commodity. What is it, Like, for example, let's talk about box trucks. Box trucks, if it's a 26-foot box truck and it's 101 inches high, which is the standard height if you have a roll-up door, and then I think it's about 96 inches wide if that's standardized measurements. With those standardized measurements, you can fit about 12 standard size pallets in your trailer. So you want to know this stuff because you're like, okay, how many pallets is it? I have a 26-foot box truck. A lot of times they already know, but it's just good for you to know. So that way you don't have to act like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then fuel costs. You got to know the fuel costs. So that's number one, prepare. Number two, present. So you communicate clearly, confidently, and know what you're talking about. Like not just not just know what you're talking about. Obviously, yeah, know what you're talking about, but like say it with confidence. Like if you're stuttering, if you're like all over the place, again, they'll be able to pick that apart. But like say it with confidence, speak with confidence when you're booking loads. It's a trucking industry. People are very straight to the point, very quick. There's, cursing and all types of stuff, chaos, but just be very straight to the point. If you're communicating on the phone, if you're through email, then here's a good one. When you're emailing, email professionally. Don't email like you're sending a text. Email like hello, comma, space, da 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 da. Say what you got to say, sincerely, such and such, or whatever. Have an email signature. Like all those things tie into because you come off as someone that like means business. All right, second point, key negotiation strategy. So this is funny, but that I wrote this down, but it's true. There's the silence game. So after you state and let me write this down to put it in the notes. To put it in the description under this video. The silence game, right, is when you, so let me say it like this. When you're negotiating for a rate, let them try as your best to let them give you the rate first. A lot of times they'll wait for you sometimes. Like, what do you want, right? And if you are in a position where you got to say what you want, then say it. But say above what you're already looking for. Let's say you did, like in that example you used, $400 altogether when you put the fuel surcharge in it. But that's $400. But you say, I'm looking for like $530, $550 or whatever. They're going to go down. Sometimes they bite, but sometimes they'll go down. They'll be like, oh, well, no, we can only do this amount, right? But whenever you do state your rate, don't say no, because like, let's say it's like, okay, I want 500. And then they're like, man, I don't know. And then, some people are like, well, how about if we knock it down? Like, you know what I'm saying? So the silent game, meaning say it with confidence. This is what I'm looking for. And then just stay silent. And then let them fumble over the words, if anything. But it's a strategy, silence. Second one, the add value method. So like, for example, like if you are dispatching for a box truck, right? This is a good point for box trucks. You could say, or hot shot, right? My hot shot has, chain straps, or my hot shot has this or that, or whatever, whatever. I don't know much about hot shots, but I have a 30-foot gooseneck with ramps in the back, so you can, maybe that helps them if they're, I don't know, whatever, but it just adds quality. So when I say the add value method, I mean like for a box truck, you can say, hey, we have straps, we have a pallet jack. So you don't need to, like, let's say it's a couple of load. Like there's been times where I booked loads for pallet. One time I booked this load for a box truck, and it was a kiosk, like 3 kiosks for Walmart. And I told the guy, we got a pallet jack. So if you got it on pallets, we can roll it in. You don't even got to have the warehouse guys do it. We could just roll it in, right? Because sometimes in those cases, they have a third-party company do it. And what do they call them? Help me out, guys. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. They call them something, lumper. As a lumper fee is where they charge a third-party company to load your truck with 3 pallets. But I'll be like, hey, listen, we don't need a lumper. We got a pallet jack. We'll be able to load this up by ourselves because we got a pallet jack on my truck. Or for a hot shot, we got tarp. Sometimes they'll even make sure you have those things, but you're just adding value by stating what you have. Like we're not just the average truck, we got this and that. We, our box truck has, is dock high, so many things come to mind, but you're just adding value to what you already know about what your driver has. Then the win-win close. This is where you would say something like, if we can make X amount of dollars, work on this rate, I'll prioritize, your next load too. So like, like one time there was a broker, and I forgot the name of this broker, but they were hauling insulation out of Easton, Pennsylvania. Yeah, lumper. Thank you. But they were hauling insulation, and I did it like 2 times in a row, like within the same month, not week. But when I went there the second time, I asked them, the broker, I said, yo, how often do you guys have this? It seems like you guys have this, frequently. And they were like, yeah, we get it like 2 or 3 times a month. And I said, listen, we can run this every time you get it. We're not too far. And they paid good. And I was like, yo, we can run this. And it was insulation. So it wasn't even palletized. It was all, they just throw them in rolls right on the truck. But that would be called the win-win close. So just like adding, value by saying, hey, look, we have availability to where we can haul this a lot. Or there was this one other brokerage one time that I was dealing with that I forgot what we hauled for them, but they gave us such a banging rate. And she said, hey, listen, if you typically have guys in this region, we'll always reach out to you because, so anyways, that's negotiation strategies. Third point, understanding broker psychology. This is going to sound extra, but it's true. Brokers are usually, you can write this down if you are taking notes, but brokers are usually juggling margins. So if you'll make their job easier, they'll pay better. So remember, I said this about 2 or 3 days ago. Sometimes when you're talking to a broker, you're not actually talking to the actual owner. You're talking to a broker agent who works for that brokerage who has to meet certain margins, right? So a lot of times, and there's no hard feelings, they'll negotiate with you up to a certain point, and then they'll just be like, hey, we just can't do that because we have to meet this certain margin. So, that ties into you not being greedy, because sometimes I remember one time I booked this load. This is for myself. It was a load going for $500, right? And what happened was the guy booked somebody over me. So I was like, whatever. But then came time to pick it up. It was 7 p.m. and the guy never went and picked it up. So he was stuck in a rut. And it was $500. So he reached out to me. He said, hey, unfortunately, they weren't able to pick it up. Can you still pick it up? We'll give it to you for $650. I said, $650? You're going to have to run me $900. He's like, $900? Man, I can't do that. I'm basically making nothing. And I'm like, look, man, that was pretty messed up. I shouldn't have done that, to be honest. Some of you guys are probably like, no, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not working against the broker. I could have just, because I was still making out either way. So anyways, that ties into that, right? They're juggling margins at the end of the day. So it's nothing personal. The second one is it's the key is relationship-based negotiation, not argument-based. This is such a good point also, because, for example, let's say I would have done that load for $700 and I would have saved him money still, or $650. I still would have made out good. There's a very high chance that he would have used me in the future. See, because that's the key. And one of the templates that we have on our course is called our broker list templates, because you want to write down every broker that you have a great experience with, right? Whenever you're hauling loads or whatever, you want to have a great experience. If you have a great experience with them, write their information, their email, their phone number, what the experience was like, what you hauled, so you can jog your memory. And you want to build those connections. That's the strength of a dispatch company, strong relationships with brokers. I remember one time, now this has nothing to do with dispatcher broker relationship, but there was this guy who told me he made over $1 million. It was a trucking company. They had 5 trucks, an Indian guy, and I was supposed to work for them as a dispatcher, as an employee, not this is before all that. And he told me the one time, he's like, yo, this particular broker, he was showing me the broker. He's like, we made $1 million with them last year just off of them alone. And that was like a trucking company broker relationship, but really it should kind of work the same way as a dispatcher. You should have strong relationships with these brokers, because they're the ones that get you connected with the drivers. So anyways, on purpose transportation, what's going on? I see you on here. Sticks the producer, I see you on here. I see you guys jumping in. So the key is to build a relationship with them. Okay, let's get into some other stuff. Understanding the market. Rate per mile. RPM is the abbreviation, the acronym, but it stands for rate per mile. That's the total load rate. Factors that affect rate: lane direction, season, load type, urgency. Here's another good one. If your driver, which 9 times out of 10 they are, is using an ELD system, you got to understand, you got to learn You got to learn what's the word I'm looking for? Hours of service, HOS. You got to learn, okay, how many hours do they have left? Every driver has 11-hour drive time within a 24-hour period. Then what's their cycle look like? Are they on an 8-day, I think it's a 60-hour, 7-day or 80-hour, I forgot. If you're a driver, put it in here. But you have to know that stuff. It's so those things tie into it. And I promise you, it's not complicated. It's very simple once you like understand that plays a big part into it, HOS. But then, like, because for example, like seasons, right? You might have a driver that is you might have a driver that's yeah, my brain's going fog, man. Had a long day. You might have a driver that's stuck in snow, right? HOS has a stipulation for that. I forgot the name of it, but it's like something good to know, right? Thank you, Khalif. 70-hour, I think it's 70-hour, 8-day cycle. And then you have to reset 36 hours and then reset 10 hours for each day. It's like tongue twister. But lane direction, you want to know where it's going. You also want to know, is that like, especially in the East Coast, is that like, for example, if you're booking a load that's going to West Virginia, I've ran loads to West Virginia. I remember one time I ran a load. I was the driver, and man, I ended up in this, and I've never experienced this. I was on top of a mountain, and the mountain had the altitude. Like, you ever been in a situation like that where it said like, this is your altitude, and I'm like, yo, how high am I that it's telling me this is my altitude, But I found myself driving up and then down and up, and then so all that burns diesel, especially if you got like a full load or whatever. So you want to know stuff like that, right? All that ties into it. Tools that you could use: DAT rate view. I'm gonna put that. All this stuff I'll copy and paste it. DAT rate view, truck stop rate analysis, freight wave sonar. I talk about this in my course. Freight waves sonar is a great, very extremely in-depth tool software that you could use to check the conditions of the market. Load board guru, mile maker. I'll put all that in the description, but those are great tools to use. Building a rate database. So this is how to create a simple spreadsheet of past loads, brokers, and paid rates. I talked about that yesterday with your weekly report that you want to put together for your carrier. And this will become your personal pricing power weapon. So like, after dispatching for a certain period of time, you'll start to know more or less what your driver's hitting and what they're looking for, and that just comes with time, with that particular carrier. Yeah, that pretty much, there's I have some more stuff on here, but I'm at 42 minutes already, and I kind of want to tie into a Q&A. And then I am going to do a giveaway. I'm going to give a course away. So we're going to put people's names in here in this spin wheel. We're going to give a course away. And so let's dive right into a Q&A. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Let me know what you guys might have been like, didn't understand fully, or maybe just didn't understand fully. Maybe you just have a question based on something we talked about, or it doesn't even have to be about this topic today. It could be about anything. Let me know what you guys have, questions that you guys might have. We'll do a brief Q&A, and we'll put your guys' name in here, spin the wheel, and we'll give away a course. Yesterday we gave one to, I don't know if Flonique's on here, and then I forgot who the other person was, but we gave away 2 courses yesterday. So I'm excited to see, what they do with that and where that takes them. But we currently do have a sale on our course, which I actually have to look at that quick. We have a sale on our course, so that sale is going to be throughout the whole time we do this webinar series up until Thursday. It's $197. Our course includes 2 sections: a fundamental section where it breaks down everything from A to Z as far as setup, the basics, HOS. It's a lot of stuff we talked about today with live demonstrations because it's module videos, so I'm sharing my screen. And then the second section, which is my favorite, is the carrier acquisition one, where we dive deep into like ads, marketing, SEO marketing, all that kind of stuff. We talk about that and how to find carriers and run ads and all that stuff. So that's all a part. It's a bundle, so that's why we call it the Freight Dispatch packet. But let me see something, because I should have it on sale, and I'm pretty sure I do. Other than that, ask questions. Let me know what you guys have question wise. And we'll put the link for all that stuff in the description under this video. Go ahead and like this video if you haven't liked it yet. Also, please, if you guys could do me that favor. Uh, cool. All right. I see a question on here. Can you talk more about fuel surcharge, how it works, and how to negotiate it? Yeah, I'll elaborate on that. Great question. Let me come in here really quick and make sure. I'll have it set up. Anyways, I was looking at the sales thing. I'll have that set up by the time you guys jump off the live if you guys were interested in that. So yeah, let's talk about fuel surcharge. So the formula for fuel surcharge is you take the difference between the current fuel. Let me just sum it up by saying this. You take the current fuel price. So which I wrote down, it's hovering around $3.71, right? And you divide that by the vehicle's mile per gallon. Now, you can ask your particular driver. You can ask them like, "Hey, what's your mile per gallon that you get on average?" Right? Everyone's going to be different, but usually they hover around anywhere from like 4 to 7 miles per gallon. So okay, Billy's the one that got the course. Awesome. Yeah, I forgot your name. Sorry, Billy. I hope you're enjoying it. But so the current average price is $3.71 average in the US, right? So you'll take that and divide it by the miles per gallon. Once you get that number, you'll multiply that number by the total amount of trip miles, which in freight logistics is called the line haul. But the line haul is separate from fuels from the at least within the rail. Like if you're pulling from the rail, that's how they calculate their rates. They'll do a line haul and a fuel surcharge. Now, most loads on the load board are expedited, but so they don't go by that. They go by what's called an all-in rate. But when you're negotiating, before you negotiate the rate, you're taking all those things into consideration. So instead of just coming up with some outlandish number where it's like, okay, this load's going 130 miles out. If I'm looking for $2 a mile, I'm looking for no less than 260. So maybe I'll round it up to 300 or maybe 350. But if you get the actual number for how much that truck's gonna be charged for diesel, then it's like you're making sure that the amount for diesel is getting priced within that rate, but then you're also getting money for the line haul, which would be like your money, because at the end of the day, like even if you did an all-in rate, they still have to pay for their diesel, so that's going to be taken out either way. So that way it gives you for negotiation purposes, it gives you the ability to focus in on the line haul and say, okay, this is the exact amount that I'm getting for this load aside from the fuel surcharge. This is what I made them, kind of situation. So anyways, the formula for it is the current diesel price, right? Let's say you have a driver in Chicago. You go on Google and type current diesel averages in Chicago, right? You take that amount, you divide it by your carrier's miles per gallon, and then you take that number and then multiply it by the total amount of miles that the load is from point A to point B. You take that. Let me cover something else that I actually didn't talk about in here, and I should have. My apologies. Is deadhead mileage. So your deadhead mileage is the miles that you're traveling from wherever your driver is to the pickup location. So you want to take that into consideration also whenever you're negotiating for the rate. The way I like to do it is, let's say I got a driver that's like 30 miles out or like 60 miles out or whatever, right? What I like to do is try to cover, I like to add at least like 50% of that mileage I'll add into my rate amount. Like for example, let's say the total amount of loads from the line haul from point A to point B is 150 miles and my driver's 50 miles out. I'll add 25 miles out of that deadhead into like what I'm looking for in my rate. Does that make sense? Because like, it's really not the broker. Like the broker doesn't care how far you are. They're not include. Like you can't tell them, well, I got a driver that's 50 miles out, so I'm looking for this because of that. They're gonna say like, okay, whatever. They don't care about that. They'll just look for someone who's closer. But for your sake, it's good to implement that into the rate that you're negotiating for, because it helps out, you know, in the long run. But sometimes you can't, like, sometimes they won't budge for that. And that's something that you have to, the conversation you got to have with your carrier. Like, okay, one of the things you also, like, for example, in my course, we have templates for the carrier packet. And in the carrier packet, I asked the driver, what's your max out on the deadhead? Some drivers will be like, 80 miles, 70, 50. It just depends. So like if you ever book a load that has, for example, let's say they're cool with 70 miles and then you book a load where your driver, the carrier had the deadhead 50, they can't get mad at you because that's the max that they put for deadhead. You understand what I'm saying? So whenever you're giving them the weekly report, you're showing them the RPM based on the line haul, not the deadhead, because they already gave you their limit on deadhead. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. Hopefully I answered your question, Burn Rubber. Let me know if I need to elaborate more. Let me see another question here. A lot of dispatchers are former carriers with DOTs and MCs. How would a dispatcher without an MC access DAT? Great question. DAT used to allow it, but freaking ratchet dispatchers ruined it. They used to allow it. When I made my course, they allowed it. But they ruined it. So what I would say to access is work something out with your carrier. And if you know someone personally, like a family member or a friend or whatever that can give you access. Now that sounds like, that's, what, I take that back. Don't, that's what I would do. But because it's not like, it's not illegal, if anything, it's just frowned upon. But put it like this. Let's say you're dispatching for a particular carrier. Carriers know that dispatchers don't have access to DAT. So you just let them know, hey, listen, this is how we do it. If you add us as an admin, because in DAT, you can add an admin, right? Because let's just say they hired you as a dispatcher, but they don't want you on their portal. They just add you as an admin. So what's the difference? So have them add you as an admin and then reimburse them on let them know, hey, look, I'll pay your subscription. That's your way in, because some of these guys are paying like 100 and something for DAT power, 100 something a month. You say, hey, we'll cover that cost, but we just need access. That's how that's basically the only way you're going to be able to. And a lot of drivers that are cool with that. Service, I asked that question and DAT says you have to have an MC person authorized. There you go. Yeah. See, I promise I didn't even see his comment before I said what I said. Yeah, that's what you do. Thank you for answering. That was the one thing I worried about. Yeah, no problem. Khalif says, what's the most deadhead miles you would allow? Me personally, I wouldn't allow more than 50 miles. But some carriers are cool with up to 70. Some carriers are desperate. They just like, whatever, I need something. And then it depends on where you're at also. So that ties into it. Cool. Who wants to be added into this giveaway? Okay, who wants to be added into this giveaway? We'll do this real quick because I got to start wrapping up. We're at 52 minutes. How many guys enjoyed the information tonight? Hopefully you guys got something out of it. Hopefully. Let's go ahead and do this giveaway so we can wrap this up. Oh man, my mouse went dead. Let me see. Uh-oh. If you want to be in the giveaway, go ahead and please write your name into the comment section, into the chat, so I can put your name in here. All right, we're going to put ORI. Okay, ORI. Taraji. Ebony. I got Ebony on here. Barbara. Khalif. Oh, I got you on here already. I got ORI. Okay, anybody else? So far, we got Khalif, ORI, Taraji, Ebony, and Barbara. Anybody else want to be added into this giveaway? We're getting ready to spin this wheel, and we're gonna give away a course to somebody. We got 5 people on here. Anybody else that wants to be added before we wrap this up? Are we good? Okay, Powell. We got Powell. Thank you for coming in here last minute because I was getting ready to start. All right, we got Powell, Barbara, Ebony, Taraji, Ori, and Khalif. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and spin this wheel. You guys ready? If you're ready, put ready in the chat so that way I can do this. All right, everybody's ready. Cool. Let's do it. All right. Barbara. We got Barbara as the winner. Which one was Barbara? I don't think it matched your name on here. I think you had a different name, Barbara. Let me see. Let me spin back on my comments. Barbara was On Purpose Transportation. Awesome. Cool. On Purpose. Cool. So, Barbara, here's what I want you to do. Send me an email to courses at Covenant Dispatch LLC.com. I'll put that in the description. When I post this video, I'll put it in the description. So that way you can email us. And when you shoot us the email, we'll give you the link so you can sign on. Congratulations. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get so much value and information out of it. To everybody else, we are offering it on sale. So we do have it on sale. We'll have it on there for the remainder of this week. I had fun. We got 2 more nights. We're going to wrap it up. No, Wednesday. Yeah, 2 more nights. We have Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday, we're going to go out with a bang. So we're going to do giveaways, but I'm going to do like a crazy topic. I don't know, something like crazy. Like very in depth, very different. I don't know. We're gonna do something fun, but I'm excited for these last 2 nights. I've been having fun with these. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying them and getting something out of them. But yeah, no. Other than that, I'm getting ready to jump off of here. Shoot me an email if you got any other questions. Courses at Covenant Dispatch LLC. Maybe you had questions about what we talked about. If I do see your email, I like to email at least within 24 hours. If it's like, sometimes people will email me and they'll put like 10 questions in one email. And it's like, all right, I got to answer this like in sequence. Okay, number 1, But maybe if you had, you could ask anything. It doesn't really matter. But you can shoot us an email. We'll email you back. Other than that, guys, we'll be back on tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then Wednesday and then Thursday, we're going to close it out, 8 p.m. Share it with somebody. Like this video. And I can't wait for the last 2 days. Also, follow us on Instagram. That's what I wanted to add. Follow us on Instagram. Everything we talked about, I wrote it down. I'll put it in the description for you guys to check out. If I forget, shoot me an email. Let me know. But also, follow us on Instagram. We're going to be more active on there also. Anyways, I'm out of here, guys. Hopefully, you guys got something out of this. On Purpose Transportation. Email me. Don't forget. All right. See you.